My brothers and sisters, the Lord be with you. Reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. John was standing with two of his disciples, and as he watched Jesus walk by, he said, "Behold, the Lamb of God." The two disciples heard what he said and followed Jesus. Jesus turned and saw them following him and said to them, "What are you looking for?" They said to him, "Rabbi," which translated means teacher, "where are you staying?" He said to them, "Come and you will see." So they went and saw where Jesus was staying, and they stayed with him that day. It was about 4 p.m. Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, was one of the two who heard John and followed Jesus. He first found his own brother Simon and told him, "We have found the Messiah," which is translated Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. Jesus looked at him and said, "You are Simon, the son of John. You will be called Cephas," which is translated Peter. The Gospel of the Lord.
Greetings. Greetings of peace and goodness to you, my friends. Thank you, Kevin. Imagine the palette of an artist of Leonardo da Vinci or Pablo Picasso with many colors. We have many colors today on our palette. So I hope to give some attention to all of them and paint a picture of what this day, this Mass is, and this Gospel is all about. We're recognizing today a very important day for our young people, and that is the enrollment in their studies for preparation for First Communion. It's massive enrollment for First Penance, which comes first, as well as their parents with them. And we welcome them, and we'll have more about that in a moment. And it's fitting that this be the day, because this is the day not only that the Lord has made, but this is the day in which we concentrate on the meaning of vocation, the meaning of call. I want to break apart the gospel for us. So please, if you don't mind, a little bit of repetition. The gospel is written by John the Evangelist, who wrote this some 70 or maybe 80 years after the ascension of Jesus Christ. And he's reflecting back now. So the John that he's talking about here, John was standing with two of his disciples, is not John the Evangelist, but John the Baptist. John the Baptist is standing there with two of his disciples, and Jesus walks by, and John points out, "There is the Lamb of God." And those two disciples leave John the Baptist and follow Jesus. And they're following him, imagine, through the streets of Jerusalem. They're following him. And all of a sudden, he has a sense that someone's following me. And he turns around and he says, "What do you want?" And they say, "Well, where do you live?" Now imagine, you're walking through Williamsville, and you sense someone following you. And you turn around and you say to them, "What do you want?" And they say to you, "Where do you live?" What would your answer be? None of your business. But Jesus says what? Come and see. He welcomes them and he calls them to where he is. This is one of Jesus' first times that we sense that his goal for us is to be with him. Later on in the gospel, he says, so that where I am, you also may be. Jesus wants those two disciples to be with him. And John, the evangelist now, is very precise. In the old translation, it used to say it was about the 10th hour. Well, this translation tells us it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. So Jesus has the two disciples with them, and we can only imagine how delighted they are. What a very positive experience this had been for them when getting to know Jesus. Getting to know Jesus. So much so that Andrew, one of those two, heard John and followed Jesus, and he found his own brother, Simon, after he had left Jesus, and told them, we found the Messiah, the Christ. And he brought him to Jesus. In that short expose of the gospel, that pericope as they call it, we have the call, the pointing out of who Jesus is, the calling of Jesus to come and be with him, the getting to know Jesus, and the bringing of others to Jesus. All wraps up in our own vocation. That's what we are called to do. How do we do it? Can we do it? In 1965, I entered the Franciscan order. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure at all if I should be doing this. I had already had a very successful life. I had gotten my bachelor's degree in speech therapy, been a speech therapist, went to graduate school at Penn State, received a master's degree in speech pathology and audiology, lived on my own, 3 or 4 different places, had my abundant share of romantic flings, but only one of them was one that I would really seriously contemplate in spending the rest of my life with. I'll tell you more about her in a little while. So after Penn State, I got a job teaching at St. Francis High School in Ethel Springs. The reason why St. Francis and Ethel Springs, it was not in my hands, was that the Diocese of Buffalo had no place for me, and they told me so. I had volunteered my services to go and be with the Diocese of Buffalo in their education program, but they had no openings, and they directed me to this place of St. Francis High School in Ethel Springs. They're looking for someone. I had just had an interview with the Buffalo Public Schools, and they offered me a job, $7,000 a year, including benefits. But I went to St. Francis High School for an interview. And I met with Father Rufinus of happy memory, and he offered me a job, making $4,000 a year. This is 1964. $4,000 a year translates to $100 a week before taxes. I took the job. I don't know why. But I just took the job. That is where I came in touch with the conventual Franciscans. Eventually, 1 year later, I thought I might want to be a Franciscan friar, because I saw in them and their life the way I lived my life at Cradle Beach Camp in Angola those summers, living together as a family. And I wondered, can I be a part of this? I'm telling you my vocation story so that you understand that there came a call, there came someone to point it out, and how unsure I was. When I went home, I wasn't living at home at the time. When I went home to tell my parents that I was going to enter the Franciscan order that August, my father said, "You're nuts." My mother said, "How wonderful." The night before I left for novitiate in August, my mother said to me, "You know, I don't want you to think we're not proud of you. But to tell you the truth, I don't think you're going to last 2 weeks." And I said, "Why?" "You've lived on your own in 3 different cities, and you don't like taking orders." I said, "Well, I'll see you in 2 weeks then." After 2 weeks in the novitiate, I never thought of it again. Oh, by the way, that romantic fling of that person that I met in college and dated in college, her name is Marie. I went to her, she was living in Syracuse at that time, to tell her that I was going to enter the Franciscan order. And she listened very politely and then told me that that same August, she was entering the Sisters of Loretto. She's still a member of the Sisters of Loretto. She lives in Kentucky now, and we do communicate. But my friends, I'm telling you that the call to be and follow Jesus' call is never clear. And sometimes it's rather ambiguous, and sometimes it means taking the step without knowing. But in that process, what I do come to know is who Jesus is. I'm not through knowing. Each one of us has the responsibility to answer. Somehow, some way answer. And get to know Jesus. You've all had, I'm sure, those moments and times of anxiety, frustration, irritation, not knowing. What is this all about? In the opening prayer, I prayed the words of the church, not mine. I prayed for peace to come to our world. We all want peace to come to us personally as well, I'm sure. We seek love, yes, but I think more essentially we seek peace too. And in this call, we have an opportunity to come to know who Jesus is. And we come to know whether or not we're open to his call. We also can refuse. We can say no. We can say no to finding out who Jesus is and allowing him to find out who we are. But I know now, after entering the order, and I didn't have this knowledge when I entered, it is a progression. I come to know very truly, if there's no Jesus, if there is no Jesus in your life, then there is no peace. There is no peace. However, if you come to know Jesus in your life, then you will come to know peace. Know Jesus, know peace. Know Jesus, know peace.